Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard. This is Lap of the World, aka recently Lap of our Garage, because everything is broken. But everything is also on the mend, and we're going to keep pushing. If you've been following us over on Twitch recently, that's twitch.tv/Lap of the World with underscores between all the words, link in the description. You will know that we have been working on our Pre LP Gallardo here, trying to fix the oil leak on it that cut short our initial track day attempt with that car back in early December. It's been a few months and we are approaching the finish line with that task. But while we were fixing that oil leak, we discovered a problem with the variable volume intake actuators that these cars use that I felt was worth its own video. Mainly because it's a sneaky problem. It's not going to be one that's going to throw a nice check engine code for you that you can, cross-reference the code on your scanner to figure out what it is. And it can be kind of hard to track down or diagnose or even realize that you have a problem. The second piece is that it is actually pretty easy to test without taking anything apart, well, with taking very little apart on the car. But we're going to demonstrate this on the workbench for clarity. So without any further ado, let's get stuck right in. So what you are looking at on our messy workbench here is the entire intake manifold assembly from our Pre LP Gallardo that we had to remove to get to our oil leak. Yeah. But where this sits in the car, so you'd have your air box back here, and then you'd have your intake tubes running to your throttle bodies here, and then into the intake plenum. Now what we're interested in is actually just underneath the throttle bodies. You can see one of them right here, and it's these little vacuum bulbs that actuate the variable volume intake system on these early Gallardos. To get a better look at that though, let's get the intake plenum covers out of the way. And with that out of the way, we get a look at the certified works of art that are the intake runners on these early Gallardos. It's a shame you don't get to see these all the time with those black covers in place. And this isn't something you get. You don't get this on your LP generation Gallardos or your Huracans. Instead, you get a larger, like plastic molding, I think, here that takes care of the same job. This is definitely more bespoke looking, in my opinion, and it's a shame they didn't find a way to show it off. Anyway, that being said, what we're interested in here today, again, are these two little vacuum bulbs here. And what you do, let me get you a little bit of a different perspective here so I can demonstrate what they do. So you can see there are 10 pairs of these intake runners, one pair for each cylinder in a Gallardo. One set of these goes straight through. You can see there's nothing in this the outer set of runners, but the inner set of runners here have butterflies in them. Now what this does is it allowed Lamborghini to kind of adjust the airflow and air velocity into the cylinders based on RPM with a very simple approach, and that is just what amount of vacuum is being pulled at the time. So you can see as these vacuum bulbs here, as they get sort of sucked closed, they open those butterflies, effectively doubling the diameter of the intake runners and also changing the length in a way as well. So what we're going to check though is if these bulbs are still doing their job. So let me shift the camera around again and I'll show you how you can test this. Now we have everything kind of on the bench and exposed here for demonstration purposes, but honestly these are not that much more difficult to get to when they're in the car. You do have the throttle bodies to contend with kind of mounted over these and off to the side just a little bit, but you don't really need to get to these things individually. You just need to be able to get to the vacuum tube that connects underneath each of them. Now obviously I've only got this vacuum tube on one of them for testing purposes at the moment, but there would be one on each in the car, and they're not too difficult to undo. You probably want to have small hands, but that's pretty much anything you do on a car. With them off the car, it's super simple. So if you do have this off the car, this is a great thing to test while you're in there. But what we're going to do is we're just going to test these vacuum bulbs, and to do so, we've got our little, this is a tool you normally use to kind of bleed brakes by yourself, and you can buy these all over the place. I'll leave a link, Amazon affiliate link in the description if you just want to easy button it. I'll put one that I found that was kind of cheap. I think it's this one, Actron. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug my vacuum pump into this vacuum tube, and we're going to give it a few pumps here. You can see the bulb starting to collapse there as we build vacuum. You can see the cam start to turn over here, and what you probably can't quite see, well yeah, you can see the top of the butterflies here as they are now full vertical. And then what you can do is you want to just kind of like leave it there. Just wait for a minute. The nice thing about these things is they're not going to pull a real hard vacuum enough that you'd risk the integrity of these in doing this test. But you don't want to pull it. You know, I've got 10, what is that? 10 inches of mercury in there. I don't know what that equates to. It's not a ton of pressure. And we just want to kind of make sure that this is going to hold its vacuum. And this one looks good. So we'll release that, and it will make its way back up. All right, so with our other bulb connected now, let's give this a try on the other side and see what happens. So again, I'm going to go back to trying to pump our brake bleeder thingy. And you'll note that whereas the last one started moving pretty much immediately, we're getting no joy with this one whatsoever. Now, you don't actually need to see the butterflies to know if this is working or not. You just need to be able to see if the bulb collapses and this cam moves, right? So yeah, TLDR, that one's broken. And now we're gonna try and see what we can do to fix it. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna try and get it off the car. One thing I'm gonna be very careful about is this little plastic wishbone or dog bone here that keeps these things on, keeps this little linkage piece. You don't wanna know what those cost. Recapping removal using footage from stream where you can actually see what I'm doing. The first thing you do is remove the 13mm bottom nut, then remove the 10mm top nut. Once you have the top nut out of the way, you're going to use a pair of pliers to relieve the spring tension from these springs that are behind the rocker plate, and then gently use a screwdriver to pry off the rocker plate. Once the rocker plate is loose, you do want to be mindful that there is a stud and a small metal or plastic tube rather sticking through the bottom plate where the bulb is sitting, but otherwise it should just pick right out at this point. All right, so we now have our bulb. Well, we would if I didn't have a hose connected to it anyway. We now have our bulb free of the car, and we have avoided even messing with our expensive dog bone here. But now that we have this thing off the car, we're gonna I'm gonna apply some opposite pressure to it, and we'll find out where it's leaking, and then we'll see what we can do to maybe fix that. So with this thing now detached from the car/intake manifold, we can take a little bit of a closer look at it. Now, this is Lamborghini part number 077907327. However, when I went to order one from Lamborghini or from common Lamborghini vendors, I wasn't able to find any of them in stock. However, if we look at the bottom of this thing, and as is the case with a lot of parts in post-Audi ownership Lamborghini, this one does cross-reference. So it's actually manufactured by Hella and is part number 004538 from that component manufacturer. And it can be found on, in addition to the Lamborghini Gallardo, it was also used on the 1988 to 1994 Jaguar XJ6 as a cruise control actuator, or for similar purposes on a few years of Land Rover, and I believe also on a Volvo or two, as well as maybe a Saab. So going off script here meant we could actually order one that was in stock. I think that's probably the play, is if one of them goes bad, I'm just going to replace the pair of them because the other one is probably not very far behind with identical mileage and usage on them. But let's get to our pressure test here real quick to show where this is leaking. So now that we've removed it from the fixture attached to the intake manifold, we can reattach our vacuum tube down here. And we're just going to blow into this ourselves, and then we're going to use some soapy water around this seam and on the top here to see if we can find out where it's actually leaking. All right, folks, well, after getting some bubbles, you can see the problem right here. There's just a split where the this little top cap connects to the flexible middle section here. And that is where most of the air is leaking from. There was also, I put my finger over that and continued to blow on it and add soapy water. It's also leaking a little bit around the edges here, but it seems like it probably still would have held most of a vacuum if not for this bigger split. So I don't know if you could actually, if that's how fixable that might be. If you could maybe get some RTV in there or something to make kind of a patch. I don't know if these things are ever under positive pressure, but if they're only under vacuum pressure and you could get a good RTV bond on that, it might actually do the job if you're not able to source some a viable replacement in short order. But again, with our parts cross-reference there, we were able to find some actually in stock at a Land Rover supplier or a Land Rover vendor, where we were not able to find some at any of the traditional Lamborghini outlets. So there's your pro tip. Don't sleep on the parts cross-reference. And if you have a problem with your Gallardo's breathing, this might be it. The last thing you're going to want to do, as we've discussed, is you're going to want to transfer your linkage over without disassembling it to the new bulb. If you look under here, you'll see there's kind of a little bit of like a two-prong barb that's on the top of the actual bulb itself. And that's how you get these things off, is you just pinch it from the side here. And once it kind of starts, and you then have your linkage separated from your bulb. And now, of course, there's one more step of putting this on the new bulb. So once you have your new bulb, just using the old one here for demonstration, you will just kind of collapse it all the way just to take any strain off of it. And then, again, you want to align it correctly. So you're going to put the 4 circles of your Audi logo away from this the air tube on the other side. And that should hold true for both sides. And then it's going to take a little bit of effort, but you should just be able to pop it in place. Again, be sure to put all the pressure on the top of this of the metal here. Don't put pressure on the ball joint when you do that. And that, folks, is where to find, how to test, and then how to remove, and where to find a replacement for your potentially errant vacuum actuator on your Pre LP Gallardo, solving a problem that you may not even know that you have until you test those bulbs and find out if they're working correctly. I suspect those have been contributing to some of the performance challenges, or not really performance challenges, but some of the odd mid RPM throttle behavior that I have felt with this car historically, but that has been nigh impossible to track down. Again, it's a sneaky problem that has not at all ever thrown a check engine light on my car, or at least not one that pointed directly to a vacuum leak or something else. Also, because of the nature of where that is in the system, the smoke test we did on the car's intake system earlier on the channel, I'll leave a link to that up here, that also did not uncover that, oddly enough. But those things definitely are worth testing on their own. And of course, you know, being able to find them is, again, a tricky point as well. But now that we know all the cross-reference tricks to that, shouldn't be too much of a problem. We're going to leave it there, though. I hope you found the video informative, if not entertaining. We are going to get a new pair of bulbs on our intake manifold, then our intake manifold back on the car, and then the car out to a track. If you want to follow the reassembly process there, again, check us out over on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/lapoftheworld with underscores between all of the words, as shown on screen and linked down below. Thanks for watching, though. Again, we'll be back with lots of unbroken cars. We are still, as of the time of this filming anyway, we are awaiting, hopefully soon, the return of our black NSX. After having gone through our decisioning process and decided to rebuild it, we are just, we're playing the waiting game at this point. So that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thanks again for watching. I'm Richard. This is Lap of the World. We'll see you guys in the next video, if not at the track.